Henning. I'm a husband, a father, a Christian, a conservative, and a retired Army combat veteran. I'm witnessing the tyranny that's coming out of Frankfurt and Washington, D.C. Witnessing the newest battle between good and evil. Over the past 6 months, we've witnessed massive spending, a climbing national debt of nearly $30 trillion, with an additional $8 to $10 trillion on the horizon. An open border policy that is allowing a surge of illegal immigration, with nearly 180,000 in the month of May crossing, many of them victims of human trafficking. Many of those people are arriving here in Kentucky in the dark of night. Gas is up nearly $1 higher than 1 year ago.
AAA says the average price of gas has climbed to $3.13 a gallon. That's up more than 40% from the start of the year. And now a new report says this is the highest gas prices we've seen in 7 years.
Oil barrels, $70 a barrel, which is a high in 7 years. So there's no decrease in fuel prices you're going to see in the near future. The new administration's executive orders alone have destroyed our energy independence. And now political justice is seeping into our military and corroding one of the greatest institutions of our country. It's making us vulnerable across the globe. We see our Department of Justice attempting to squash state-run election audits, specifically Arizona's. The left attempting to rewrite election laws that will decimate our freedoms. The near-term fight will be for our children against Marxist indoctrination, mandatory vaccines, and masking. Yesterday, the CDC published guidance that teachers and students who are vaccinated will not be required to wear masks. So does this mean our unvaccinated children are going to have to wear masks? Not my kid. Either of them. I ask you all to please contact your state leadership. Ask them to support Bill Request 60 and 69, which block critical race theory in our schools. We filed, my wife Jennifer and I filed a Freedom of Information Act about 2 weeks ago with our school asking to see the curriculum used. What we received was quite disturbing. It is a fact that critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, social emotional learning, whatever the heck they're going to call it, is in our schools now. It's my belief that this effort goes against our religious liberties, our values, our beliefs, teaching our children that they are somehow responsible for the sins of our nation's past, that they are an oppressor or that they are oppressed is reprehensible and has no place in our society, period. We do not teach our children that they are better or worse than anyone else. They are unique individuals with God-given traits and personality. Our children are taught they can achieve anything they want to, as long as they work hard and chase their dreams. They are taught to love America and be proud and blessed to live in a nation of freedom where we can love one another regardless of physical traits. To defend against these attacks, we must unify. We must start bringing groups of strong conservatives like this together, because our unity is what will prevail. Every time you go to a meeting, take someone who hasn't been before. Yes. It's the first step. I feel there's a great lack of courage with many of our Kentucky political representatives. In some cases, their silence is deafening. Yes. Why are they too scared to stand up in defense for this great nation? Where is their courage? Where are their principles? With all the evil that is occurring, why are they silent? I struggle every day that my children and future grandchildren won't have the same freedoms I had growing up. I didn't spend 24 years in the Army fighting terrorism around the globe to come back home and retire and watch it destroyed from within.
Right, that's right, that's right.
As George Washington said, the thing that separates American Christians from every other person on earth is the fact that he would rather die on his feet than live on his knees.
Amen.
That's right.
And that's how I feel.
Amen.
Sorry.
That's good.
I fight for Christian family values, for the right to life, for our God-given rights, to freedom of speech, assembly, religion, and to bear arms. I fight for election integrity, strong borders, legal immigration, and fiscal conservation. And I will not support spending billions of our taxpayer dollars on ridiculous social programs in foreign countries. That money can be spent here. I fight for free markets, lower taxes, smaller, more efficient government, reducing restrictions and regulations on small business, helping our local governments find inefficiencies and help make real progress in the communities. I fight to support America's allies, such as Israel, and defend our nation from terrorism, communism, socialism, from abroad and within.
So I'm announcing today that I'll be running in the Republican primary for state representative of District 18.
All right.
And I ran last year as a Libertarian. Basically, I got to the point I was not real happy with where the Republican Party was at. And I think a lot of people can identify with that. And I said, you know what, forget this. And I hope nobody takes offense, but I couldn't make myself go Democrat. I just couldn't do that. So ran as a Libertarian, and that had its ups and downs. But it did get me on the general ballot, and it did get my name in front of people who never pay attention in the primaries. And that's something that, this gentleman, that's going to be his obstacle. The incumbent has that power, that superpower. They're already in the office. They've already been doing things. Their name's been in the paper. Every time there's a new road, they've got this guy out there cutting ribbons and everything. So he's constantly getting that name recognition. And then you have somebody come along and maybe they don't know him. So one of the big problems that we have in Kentucky and actually in our nation is people don't show up for the primaries. You go to the general election and you go to the ballot and you look, you say, man, here's this McConnell guy, and I've got to vote for him because he's not the Democrat. And you just, you want to just kick yourself. But there was 8 people that ran against Mitch McConnell in the primary, and people don't realize that. There's less than a third of the voters show up for the primary to do the general. And that's where we are failing. And we're not just failing ourselves. We're failing my grandkids don't exist yet. Failing them. This socialism, these bailouts, these stimulus that's been going on, people are okay with it because they're not going to have to pay it back. They don't realize their grandchildren's going to have to pay it back. It doesn't bother them as much because it's not going to be them that's going to suffer. I've seen all kinds of stories. We was at the Capitol several months ago, and there was a gentleman there, I believe, from Russia or maybe Czechoslovakia. But he got physically on his knees, crying and begging people, to stand against these things that are coming in, this socialism. And it's a scary thought. My oldest son just got married a couple weeks ago. And there they are, they're going to try to start a family in this world, And so I would rather sit at home. I've got a day job. I'm successful at it. I would rather sit at home. My political involvement is solely self-defense. Big government is the oppressor. Big government is the one that's coming on, and trying to force things on us. And, you know, we've got to be like, you know, it's always comparing us to this country over here. Well, they've got these gun laws and it's something, you know, who cares about that, right? We're in America, and whether people like to hear it or not, we're founded on dangerous liberty. You know, we were founded on personal responsibility of your own health, your own privacy, your own safety, you know, your own well-being. You are supposed to pursue your happiness, you know. And so that, you know, the Constitution, to me, it'd be a great place to get back to. You know, people say, "Oh, we're a Constitution." We're long gone from that. You know, let's just be real. You know, I want to hold on to these things too and pretend like this is what we're based on, but we're not anymore. We're far away from these things. And so, you know, the Constitution is a great place to get back to. And sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's edgy, talking about the things that would get us back to the Constitution. You know, when I ran my campaign last year, I learned a lot. A lot of it was what not to do, right? A lot of it was, you know, let's make all the mistakes we can before we find what's right. And so that's what I did last time. But what I did learn is people, they want to know what they're getting. I mean, they're like in my work, I'm basically a salesman of sorts. And so they want to know what they're buying with their vote, with you. You know, they want to know, you know, what am I getting? And so I've got some bills in mind. I'm going to get them drafted, and I'm going to be running around with them like flags. Now, maybe some of y'all don't know, but I was a lead petitioner on a petition to the House of Representatives to impeach the governor. All right, I campaigned on impeach Beshear. I was the only candidate for state representative in 2020 that campaigned on, if I'm elected day one, I'm filing articles to impeach Beshear. Had them drawn up by probably the best lawyer in the state. But I didn't win. I was running as libertarian. Everybody goes in, they pull the vote. They just pull the party lever, right? Straight ticket voting, whether you agree with me or not, straight ticket voting is the lazy vote, and it's caused us to elect a big pile of rhinos. Somebody said, we have a super majority in Frankfort, yay. No, we don't. We have a bunch of rhinos that got your vote the way they knew how they played the game, the way the rules are set up. You go pull the party lever, one and done. That's how they get in. I can name off a handful of Democrats who switched party to Republican because they knew they could get in. They were in. They put them on the impeachment committee. They were the ones that grenaded our impeachment effort. Tony was also a petitioner named on that petition with me. Andrew Cooperrider is the one you was talking about that announced for state senate last night. He was one of the petitioners on the petition with me. And as soon as they took it up really fast, you know, they act like they was going to take action really fast, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Something's going on. You know, these guys don't want to have to do this. They don't want to go through these motions. And when I watched what they did, they set it up with a committee with 7 rhinos, and they did appoint a really good legislator as an alternate, and she never got to vote. But she was the only brave soul to stand on the House floor during session and said, if it would have been up to me, we would have impeached him. You know, her name is Felicia Ravery. And she's a little bitty short thing, but she is dynamite. And I can't wait to get in there and work with her. My opponent is Samara Hebron, and she co-sponsored the gas tax hike in Kentucky, in Frankfort. And they wanted to bring it to the floor, but we were all paying attention. We need to do that again. We need to do that again with the state government. We need to do that with our federal government. That bill, I was talking about Guthrie, I sent it to your messenger. We need to see stuff like that when it comes through and pitch us a fit. throw a fit, you know, and let them know, because we did that this last year, and they didn't bring that gas tax hike to the floor for a vote because they knew it would be political suicide. But we were watching them because we suspected that they might slip it in as an amendment on another bill, and they didn't. But what's interesting, and she might end up seeing this and get mad at me and everything, there's a person back there that goes to our county party meetings, but it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about her personal issues or any of that. The voting record, like this gentleman said, the voting record and the bills they file is plenty. But we asked her about, why did you co-sponsor this gas tax hike? Why would you want to raise our gas taxes? And she defended it. So she's ready to do it again. So I'm running no new taxes. We got plenty of tax revenue coming in. Something like $10 or $11 billion a year coming in. I think I saw yesterday they were like $1.1 billion surplus now in Kentucky. We don't need to raise taxes. We need to appropriate properly. Tennessee, to our south, the Tennesseans pay like 40% less taxes per capita, and they have great roads. It's not the revenue coming in; it's the appropriations of the revenue. So, and she also, I'm not trying to bash her. These are her votes, okay? It's just facts, but they get all defensive and things. But here she talking about how we need more revenue, but she also voted to give $50 million to bail out U of L so they could buy a hospital. And if you look through history, about every 12 years, these hospitals up there get somebody, they get bought and moved around and everything. And a lot of times with your tax dollars, So there's money being wasted, pitched around. There's incentives, the school choice bill, that'd be a good one to talk about. The critical race theory, I got some bad news for you. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. They'll just rename it, teach it on something else. They're already doing that. They've been doing that. The solution to the critical race theory problem is a good, full-blown school choice. That's the solution. If I don't like what they're teaching in this public school over here, school choice, what it is, it's a fund. I have to explain that because all the people come out of nowhere saying, oh, you're using our tax. Oh, no. It's a fund that people can donate to. It's not vouchers. I would be okay with vouchers. But it's a fund that people can donate to, and their donation then gets them a tax incentive, tax write-off, with the state government. And so they capped this fund at, I think, $25 million. I don't know. I think that's right. For the year. And so up to $25 million in tax incentives could be given to people who are donating to this fund. Okay, now this fund, there's all kinds of funds. There's a seat fund, there's all kinds of funds. But this fund, a parent can apply, like say at my kid's school, this actually happened. At my kid's school, they was making my kid read this book that had a lot of homosexuality content, drug use, alcohol use, all these things. And I'm not bashing on anybody's lifestyle or anything, but I choose to educate my kids a certain way about those things. And I look up this book that they're using for this report they're going to do. And I Googled it, right? I just took the first review that come up. I wasn't going to search for something that fit my narrative or whatever. I just took the first Google review, and it had a 1 out of 5 educational value. This book did. But everything else, sexual content and drug use and all these things were like a 4 out of 5 or, whatever. So I called the superintendent. This is what we got to start doing, right? We got to quit being, we confuse, Jesus said, talk about being meek. We confuse meek with weak. Okay? As a classic mistake I see Christians doing. And so I call him up and I'm like, look, man, I understand if this is something you all have got to do, but I'm just letting you know that my kid will not be attending that class anymore. And if you guys come after me for some kind of truancy or something, then we're going to the courts. It's happening. And he was superintendent, he totally backed up. Oh, I didn't know this was going on and all this stuff, And and he didn't. He genuinely didn't. Because the next day he called, he sorted it out. That teacher, they've been reading that book for like a week and a half, and she had all this plan. They had to drop that book, She was mad. She was crying. She took my son out in the hall. And she said, oh, your dad just has to understand that we've got to get along and we've got to respect these people and all that stuff. And I'm like, listen, I never said anything about disrespecting these people. People that want to choose to live that way, that's their choice. I don't want to. And I get to teach my kids a certain way. That's one of our core values in a constitutional republic, is I get to raise my kids how I see fit. Train up a child in the way of the Lord, right? I get to if I want to. And so, anyway, they dropped the book. The lady actually ended up quitting that school and moving to another school.
Good.
I'm not saying it was over this, but I'm saying that was her last year of teaching. So we're gonna, this is something Andrew Cooper talks about all the time. People are ready to take their guns and go fight the government, but they won't go to the school board meeting. And they won't go vote in the primary and get the rhino out. We're not there yet. I understand that. A couple more things I want to talk about, bills that I will be trying to push, and then I'll get out of your hair. So I want to see our state income tax eliminated totally. Okay? But so many rhinos in there, I don't know if they'll go for that. So something I had pushed last cycle was to eliminate income taxes on overtime pay. You got this guy out here, and he's working his butt off, and then he's going to go work some overtime. Are we going to penalize him for that? Why would we penalize hard work? So I want to evaluate what a person's regular hourly rate would be if they're on salary. Evaluate what a regular pay would be, and then anything over that, no taxes on that portion of income. But I would like to eventually see our state income tax eliminated, just for the principle that if I force you to give me part of what you are laboring for, that's slavery. It's slavery by percentage. If we force people to give us 100% of what they labor for, there's no question it's slavery, right? 90%, that's still slavery, right? And what is the threshold? Right now, the average taxpayer in America pays about 35% in taxes, fees, and all these things. So that's something that's kind of a big deal for me. And something else, we were involved in that petition to impeach the governor, and it was a total sham. We were at the mercy of clowns pretending to uphold the Constitution. We actually have the chairman of the impeachment committee on record saying, yes, we know he violated the Constitution, but so have other governors before him, so we can't do anything about it. They dismissed it because in Kentucky for impeachment, they had to find a misdemeanor that he committed. Folks, what they're saying is that violating the Constitution is not against the law. We were built and founded on the Constitution, but they have all these statutes. It's like a parallel universe. Here's the Constitution, this many laws, and then they have this over here, this alternate universe, I'll call it, of all these statutes that they actually uphold. They don't uphold this. So I want to introduce a bill that makes it a misdemeanor to violate the Constitution if you are an elected official and you swore an oath. I said, well, wait, what about breach of contract, right? They swore an oath. to uphold this Constitution. What about breach of contract? But no, they say we gotta find a misdemeanor. So I wanna make it a misdemeanor for elected official to violate the Constitution. What's gonna happen, I'd already talked to a lawyer about it, he said, they will get around that a lot of crummy ways. But Governor Beshear has already, but a judge has already said, you violated the Constitution. He's already said that. So if we had this law in place and it went to the courts and everything, and a judge says that in the future, then this person could be impeached. And then to go along with that, I want to push a recall process. I want to be able to recall, and there's all kinds of different ways you can structure that and set it up. And I'm looking at what other states do. I'm watching what's going on with Newsom in California. Representative James Allen Tipton, I believe, is the one that filed a recall bill last session. I looked at it. It was a great start. It really didn't have any numbers or formulas or anything, but it got the conversation started, and then they squashed it, right?
Leadership squash.
They squashed it, right. Leadership, yeah, let's say that. Leadership squashed it. We do have a few good legislators in Frankfurt. We need more. We do have a few good legislators in DC. We need more. If I had anybody that I look up to, be Thomas Massey. That's one that I'd really like to model myself after. But if he someday gives up on the Constitution, I'll throw him under the bus too. So, but anyway, yeah.
And what are your thoughts on expanding the time frame of the sessions so that we aren't, we have, 2 months, roughly 2.5 months of actual legislative time, which is essentially legislative power, because once that session is closed, right now the governor's doing whatever he wants for the next 10 months.
Right. I'm okay with how they kind of got it going now. The modifications they made. It's not perfect, but I'm okay with it. I don't want a full-time legislature, and I don't want to give them a whole lot of extra time. I would rather see them divvy up the already allotted time throughout the year a little better. I would rather see that,
Yeah, because different issues arise at different times, and I
Good
feel
point.
like we're kind of powerless to deal with that until the new year starts.
That's a very good point.
See, they already have committee meetings in the off. And so maybe the solution is some kind of modification to rules that would let them, come back. But it's a touchy subject because I'm for small government, a lot of our founders liken government to a fire, which I think is a great analogy. Because a fire, it's useful. You can purge stuff, you can, clean up some brush and things like that. But you always want to keep it small enough that if you don't like how things are going, you can stamp it out, right? Reform or abolish. But where we're at now, it's humongous. And I would be really leery about giving them a lot of extra time to do things.
It seems like I'm from California originally, I hope you don't. It seems that the most messed up now full-time legislature.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But the other thing too that I kind of want to, so definitely the federal government is completely bloated.
Yes.
And it's doing things that our states should be doing, such as Department of Education should not exist at the federal level.
No.
It should be. But so let's just hypothetically, if myself and a bunch of other patriots can get in the federal government and start cutting this pork and getting it to the state level, I'm scared for Kentucky to have only those 2 or 3 months at the beginning of the year to deal with things, and then throughout the year we have different things like the pandemic comes up or whatever, and you're at the mercy of one person in the state level.
Yeah,
So I like your idea of dispersing that time throughout the year so they can deal with new problems as they come up, get a law passed and implemented. Because right now, for example, if they do anything with CRT, It will not be voted on until January, and it won't become a law until July 1st of next year,
Right.
which means our kids are gonna be looking at this stuff for a whole nother year.
Yeah, it's true, it's very true.
And so, you know, my wife and I had this discussion a lot about, you know, how we battle these things, and she's very adamant about starting at the local level. I believe we have to start at every level at the same time to work concurrently, or else the local level is not gonna have the support from the level above. So, I think there's something within the state level that needs to be adjusted about when they have a session, because to wait every 10 months for something.
Yeah.
And in that analogy, the governor's unchecked that entire year. He's the flamethrower while there's this small fire, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, as far as like, you know, the state waiting on the federal and the federal waiting on the state, that's been a classic excuse to do nothing for decades. You know, we're out of time, right? Like, I would rather sit at home. I'm actually a Baptist minister. I got a jail ministry. You know, I got all these kids. I got all this stuff going on. You know, I would rather be doing other things, right? But like I said, this is self-defense. You know, to be honest, I don't care about the party. I don't care about any party. You know, I care about liberty for my kids and my grandkids. That's what I care about. And, yeah, what you're talking about, the problem is they gave that governor all that power back in the 90s and then come back to bite him in the butt. You know, and it just reiterates what the founders wanted, checks and balances all the time. They always wanted checks and balances. So, I think I need to shut up and sit down. Any questions or
I
Mm-hmm.
anything?
just want to say one more thing. The
Yeah.
bill request 106. I'm sorry, my allergies are crazy and I can't.
Bill
talk.
request 106.
I
Okay.
know you were there.
Banning
but-
vaccine passports.
Right, and more. There's more to
Okay.
it than that, but just so everybody here's where I did ask tomorrow, because they are gonna go into session,
Yeah.
and I asked if she was gonna bring it up, support it, co-sponsor it, anything, and she straight to my face said that will not pass.
Right.
So she isn't gonna support or do anything, to help keep us safe from demanding our kids get it, demanding our jobs give us anything to do with the COVID jab, anything. So if you know anybody that's in her district, she's not gonna do that. But will you co-sponsor or something
absolutely.
like that if you get elected?
Yeah,
Because I was
that's
very,
ridiculous.
very upset. She basically, I was very upset when she told me that
Yeah.
that just won't pass, nobody's gonna support it, no, they're not gonna discuss it. So,
I'll just add something real quick. So, my wife and our friends Diane and Thomas, we worked on this issue about 2 weeks ago. We developed basically a affidavit, if you will, would that be what it's called? But the declination statement, you sign it, you put your kid's name on it, you get it notarized, and it tells your school if they try to vaccinate without your knowledge, try to teach your kids about vaccinations or why it's important, try to twist them, you know, with their words, or segregate your child for not being vaccinated or force them to wear a mask, that you're gonna sue them. We have this available for everybody in Kentucky.
yeah, fine.
Miss Diana has it, we'll get your email and she'll get it to you digitally. But that, and so emergency youth authorization, there's already a law that prevents anyone from mandating that vaccine. The problem will be when they make it authorized. You go to the state Kentucky Health's webpage, they already have a declination statement posted up for when it's authorized. So you know they're gonna push this. But we can get you this, we did it 2 weeks ago, was it, 3 weeks ago? And just get it notarized and then you'll slap it on your principal's desk.
Working on anything for employers, 'cause they're gonna mandate it too.
I've got an answer to that,
For
but I'll
employers.
say this for you. Y'all comment quickly.
Good information. So I have one question. What if we have a problem finding somebody to notarize that? Because of, like, I know there's notaries out there that do things, but what happens if we find we're having a hard time getting it notarized because of that kind of issue? You know what I mean?
I don't think.
notary does is verify.
supposed to read it.
Yeah, they're
I just
not.
don't want them to start, well, I'm sorry, but I won't notarize it.
I was also in the military. I was Air Force. And I had to take the same oath that he had to take in the Army. How many veterans do we have in the room today? All right. All had to take the oath. I still remember we all had to do the exact same thing on the first day. We had to take an oath that says, I will defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign, what's the last two words, gentlemen?
Domestic.
Or domestic. When I was in the military, I was serving over at NATO headquarters over in Europe. And the Lord impressed upon my heart to get out of the military and go defend my country. Now, I thought that was kind of odd. I'm like, Lord, I wear the uniform every day. I fought on the streets of Baghdad during the war. I already defend my country. The Lord impressed upon my heart that the threat to America is not Al-Qaeda. It's not North Korea. The threat to America is inside of America. Mm-hmm. And it will destroy her as surely as bombs falling from the sky. So I got out to go defend my country, and now I see why. The greatest threat, Abraham Lincoln said, if America is to fall, she will fall from the inside. And that's exactly what we've got going on today. So I am incredibly grateful. I've been praying for years now, Lord, rise up patriots who are not seeking power, but are seeking liberty for themselves and their posterity. And we are starting to see those now on our federal level, on our state level, on our local county level. You are literally answers to prayer. And as the Bible says, may God increase your tribe. Yeah. My last day in the war, I was stationed in Baghdad, right in the middle of it all. My last day in the war, I'm heading over to the LZ landing zones where the chopper comes in and out. And we come under attack, mortar attack. And so they got these big concrete shelters that you can get underneath for the mortar attack. And just like our lady back there, I've got allergies. Running down my throat today. And so we came under a mortar attack, and rockets are coming in. I dive underneath the shelter. And there's a captain who's coming out of the chopper, and his first day, his first few minutes in Baghdad. And you can just see his face. He's like, I haven't got my bags over to the tent, and they're already shooting at me. And I said, Captain, welcome to the war. Mr. Clark, welcome to the war. Mr. Humphreys, welcome to the war. Just like that, when they're going to shoot at your family, you got to step in front of them sometime. You got to take it. But I tell you something that was very encouraging to me. We went over one day, I forget it was the Battle of Najaf or the Second Battle of Fallujah, one of them. And I was very new there. And it was my job, I was media relations. I was to escort the media and to have them tell the story of what's going on. And I saw there was a Marine, and he was trying to go from point A to point B. And so he tries to leapfrog to the next point of cover, and the terrorists shoot him down. He goes face down in the dirt. So two other Marines go get him, and they shoot those guys, and they go down in the dirt. And then I think every Marine there ever was all came out like ants from a disturbed hill. They blew up everything. And they came and they took those three guys, and they brought them back. And I'm like, and that gave me great encouragement. I said, these guys are not going to let me fall here. And that gave me great courage to do what I needed to do for my part of the war. And that's what we need. He's going to be under terrible attack and slanderous attack. And so will Mr. Humphreys. And we're going to need people to say, you know what? I'm going to pick you up, and I'm going to walk with you, and I'm going to help carry you. They're going to need people to lick envelopes. And you know what? You need people to be able to put a sign in their yard. And you know what? It costs money to buy envelopes. Yes. It costs money to make signs that you'll give away for free. So this is one of those things also. We can come here today and say, you know what? I support you. I support you. But another way is you got to put your money where your mouth is. So I'm not getting a cent of this. I'm encouraging you to give and say, this is what I am willing to invest in these people. Because my hope is, again, in the local level. And the higher level it goes, the less faith I have in it. But we need that on each and every level. I made a few notes here as we were sitting here today. Edmund Burke, famous philosopher, he says, all that required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And that's what we're seeing a lot of the rhinos Today you have the establishment. They're like, well, I'm not the one who did all of this. Yes, but they allowed it to happen by not stopping it. And that's why I have a major problem with the Kentucky State Legislature today.
Yeah.
As Mr. Clark was saying, they're like, well, they blamed Andy for taking away our rights. It is the legislator's job to protect our rights. I was reading at an event last night, the Declaration of Independence. It says that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. It tells us right there in the Declaration, why does government exist? Governments are instituted to secure these rights.
Right.
I have my rights being violated, being taken away, and so your job was to protect me from the one who is violating my rights. They failed to do that, so every single person on that impeachment committee needs to be replaced.
Yep.
Because they failed in their God-given, constitutionally given responsibility. I don't care if they have a little R behind their name or not. Principle before party, always.
Yep.
And I be a Republican. I'm very proud to be a member of the Republican Party. I can stand wholeheartedly on the principles of the Republican Party, which is less government, lower taxes, more liberty. The trouble is we have a lot of people right now who put Republican behind their name, and they're not standing by those principles. What we are seeing today is the Democratic Party of today has moved to complete open socialism, communism.
Yes.
They're not even hiding it, very overt, proud of that. Where, again, 20 years ago, that would have been the way. When the Republicans in the establishment today are where the Democrats were 20 years ago.
Yes.
So and I didn't like where they were 20 years ago.
Right.
That's back when we had Clinton and stuff like that. So we need a major reset, and I'm so happy to see that you all are stepping up and standing up for that. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was a pastor in Germany during World War II, and he would preach against the Nazis. Not a safe thing to do when you live in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. So the other pastors would say, hey, listen, just talk about, people living right and getting saved and just stay out of politics because that's nothing but trouble. And so Bonhoeffer, he said, not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. When I was in the military, again, my job was media relations. My area of expertise I was trained on was countering propaganda. Looking back on it, I can see why the Lord had me in that job. Sure. All right? Because that's exactly what I'm doing full time nowadays. And one of the things they teach you, one of the dirty tricks that the media will pull, is that they will say something which is incorrect, and after that, they will ask you a question. Now, if you just answer the question, people are going to assume that incorrect statement that you must agree with that or that's the truth because you didn't address it. You just answer the question they asked after that. So before you, and I'm telling that to you two guys, I'm giving you a media briefing, all right, that I give to the generals. First thing you have to do is correct the incorrect statement, and then you answer the question. All right? And that's what we have to do a lot as well. We're pushing a lot of these things out and calling them facts. They are not whatsoever. We've just got to start calling them out. What you're doing is completely wrong. At the best, you are misinformed and you are mistaken. And at the worst, you are a bold-faced liar. And we simply have to start calling people out for that. Such as the Kentucky Commissioner of Education. And if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, I encourage you to watch this week's Patriot Points on YouTube. Talking about how critical race theory has simply been renamed. And he says, oh, we're not teaching that. And then they teach that exact thing. And he says, we shouldn't have to. And in the same speech, twice says it should be, CRT should be forced. Our teachers should be forced to teach this. Our kids should be forced to learn that. He says it twice. Don't take my word for it. I put the video up of his testimony. Twice he says that. At the best, mistaken. At the worst, a liar.
Yes.
I'm Brother Lee Watson. I approve this message. Okay. Let me see here. Let's talk a little bit about Mr. Guthrie. If you would like to, again, that's our current representative for this district. Mr. Humphrey seeks to replace. And you have my full
Henning.
Henning. Yeah, I wrote it down and I can't read my own writing. Christopher Henning. All right. Yes, Mr. Henning. I don't know who Mr. Humphreys is, but I'm sure he's a great. All right. Mr. Henning. In fact, later I'd like to talk to you. We'll get you on the program and we'll do think it'd be great. I encourage you to go to this website from the John Birch Society. John Birch Society is a wonderful constitutional organization nationwide, and they will rate our Congress members based on how they vote. And they will show you, these are the bills that have major constitutional impacts, and this is how the different people in Congress voted. I encourage you to go and look up the voting record of Mr. Guthrie. You will find he is at the bottom of the barrel, all right? And they don't just tell you, that mudslinging. They're showing you the record of why that is. And that's a big difference between running on somebody's record is not mudslinging. That is running on their record. Right. Mudslinging is when I'm insulting your character or your past. That is not running on the record. Feel free to do that with a clean conscience, because the record is what should be run on anyway. We were talking, Mr. Jacob had brought up a little bit about how we need to shrink government. Right now we're seeing the left saying, hey, we need more government programs, so the government should be involved in this. The nanny state. Ronald Reagan said, government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem. All right? And that's exactly what it is. We need to dismantle that thing entirely. I've got 15 other things that I was going to talk about, but we've been here long enough, so I want to end with one other thing. Is these guys, again, they cannot do this alone. The Moms for Liberty, if they go in with 2 or 3 of them, they will be discounted. You literally need to contact every liberty-minded person that you know and make a plan, a schedule, make it a party. We are doing something, and use this energy and literally flood that as it has never been done in all of your counties, in Hardin County's history before. That will make a major, huge impact. And like they said with the t-shirts and hats, they need to know that all these people are there with this. So you need to go get those real quick, because you've got enough time before it happens. And we need to come alongside, because that is so incredibly important. Like when I saw those Marines come rescue those 3 guys, they're like, hey, there's people who are going to help me in this fight. I won't be here alone. Back during World War II, there was the island of Corregidor over there in the Pacific. And the Japanese, it was the early days of the war, they're taking all the islands in the Pacific. And we knew we're not going to be able to hold Corregidor. So General MacArthur was in charge of that area of operations. And so he contacted the commanding officer there. His name was General Jonathan Wainwright. And he says, listen, evacuate the island of all American personnel. You get off first and order everybody else to follow you. General Wainwright says, I will not. He disobeyed orders. He's like, I will order the evacuation, but mine will not be the first boots off this island. Mine will be the last boots off this island, and my people will go first. General MacArthur said, there's not time. Get out, get out, get out. These guys were lifelong friends. They had gone to West Point together. They've been friends since they were kids. General MacArthur was correct. There was not enough time. And the Japanese came and they took Corregidor, and Jonathan Wainwright became the highest ranking United States officer to be captured during World War II. And they beat this man, and they isolated this man, and they starved this man, because they knew his history too. They're like, you know how MacArthur thinks, because you all went to military training together. What are his plans? How would he do this? What is his tactics? And MacArthur, Wainwright, he wouldn't say anything. And so every day he would go over there and they would beat him, and then they'd go back to his cell and they'd slam the door and they'd stomp off mad. And it was said that the other prisoners, they would be like, I guess he didn't talk today. He didn't talk, I'm not going to talk either. And then one day after the Battle of Midway, we started taking the islands back. Trouble is, MacArthur knew my friend Jonathan. He knows how I think. He knows my plans. If he's talked, he can derail everything in the war. So he sent 2 commandos to Corregidor Island. Not to liberate the general, that was beyond their capabilities, just to find out what's happened to my friend. 2 commandos go in. And then they come back in a few days and they say, General MacArthur, your friend is beaten, he is starved, he is isolated, but he hadn't talked. And MacArthur said, launch the invasion. The next morning, usually General Wainwright would be sitting there in his edge of his cell, down thin, battered and bruised, waiting for his next day of torture and beatings. But they say on that day, he was standing straight and said his first words, bring me my uniform, for I am an officer in the Army of the United States. And they say those Japanese soldiers, one turned to the other and said, "He knows." They didn't know how, but they're like, "He knows MacArthur is coming for him." And if you look at the unconditional surrender on the USS Missouri, when the Japanese said we surrender unconditionally, you see there is the treaty with the surrender. There's General MacArthur. And if you look to the right of that very famous photo, you will see a man standing upright, who's very incredibly thin, with the name Wainwright. You son of your You're going to be under attack. They're going to isolate you. Don't break. And if you stand, encourage somebody else to stand.
Yeah.
United we stand. CRT is division. The socialist agenda is divide us up into all these little groups and then set the groups against each other. That's what the Nazis did. Let us learn from their mistakes. And the solution to all of this is Kentucky's state motto, united we stand. Thank you.
What ward are you running and where are you running for?
I am not currently running for anything. I would like to run for the position of Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky. I believe that is the role that the Lord would have me to have. Looking at the constitutional responsibilities, they are basically a voice for the administration, and they get across the state being a voice. And I would love to be a voice teaching Kentuckians their own rights, because we don't even know what they are. And so when some next joker comes in a few years and says, "I'm going to take away your right to go to church, I'm going to take away your right to have free speech, I'm going to take away your right to go to work, I'm going to take away your right to travel in and out of the state," the people of Kentucky will stand up with one voice and say, "Oh no, he won't, sucker." And if we had had the churches, when Andy said, "I'm going to close the churches," we had a handful of them that stayed open. If we had even 10% that said no, and then Andy, what did he wind up doing? He threatened them, but did he actually wind up doing anything?
No.
No, because he had no power. And the courts actually, when it went to court, they threw out everything he did and said, "You can't close churches. That's way illegal." All right? And so if we had had more of those people who just stood up and said no, then when he said, "Well, I want to close your businesses," remember, he closed churches first,
Yes.
and then 10 days later closed businesses.
Yes.
And then we had business owners that said, "You're not going to destroy my business. My family's built for years." And then they would have stayed open too. You know what he could have done about it?
Nothing.
I really lay a lot of the problem at the church.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why he targeted them first. If they won't defend their religious liberty, they won't defend anything else.
That's right.
It was one of our founding fathers that said, "It does not take a majority to persevere. It takes an unrelenting minority that will not be silenced or stopped."
3%.
3% is about the estimate of the Americans that actually participated in the Revolutionary War. If you want to look over again at the reverse over there again in Germany, the Nazis, there were multiple parties over there in Germany. The Nazis were only one political party, and they were an incredibly small minority. My understanding is less than 15%. And yet they drove the agenda. Because again, they divided everybody, set them all against each other, and said, "Hey, we need to establish control." They created the problem so they could solve the problem. That's what Andy is doing right now. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to tell you all not to go to work." And so people didn't go to work. He created the unemployment problem. And then he made it worse by saying, "I'm going to give you the $300 bonus to not work." And then we got this idea that says, "Okay, I'll pay you $1,500 to go back to work." And so what happened to all those people who said, "I'm going to work the whole time anyway"? What about the businesses? I know different business owners that says, "I have taken a loss and I have kept my people working even though we didn't have business." So that because they're being able to pay their rent is essential. They're being able to buy groceries for their kids is essential.
Yeah.
But these people, they can't get that $1,500, so it's unfair to those people who actually have been working. And by the way, he was keeping that $300 bonus for the next 10 weeks in a row. Well, if you do that by not working, you know what? 10 times 300 is $3,000. That's more than $1,500 the way I saw it. It is completely inappropriate for him to be using the money. President Reagan said in his famous speech, "A Time for Choosing," he says, "The government cannot control the economy without controlling people. And to do that, it must use force and coercion." That's exactly what we are seeing today from the ultra-socialist agenda that is being pushed. America is a socialist nation right now.
Yes.
Our only hope is to reverse that.
Right.
Because that is who is in charge. So I don't know how I got off on that, but it's good.
Pretty good.
So you were asking me what I'm running for. I am not running for anything as of today. I would like to be the Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky to teach Kentuckians their own rights.
Yes.
The person who I am supporting for governor is Mike Harmon. He is currently the Kentucky State Auditor. I would love to be his running mate. Mr. Harmon has not chosen me as his running mate. He and I have talked about this, and he is praying about it, seeking the Lord's will. So I encourage you to pray about that, and let's see, because I think they changed the law in Kentucky last year. No longer do governors have to choose a running mate. They don't have to do that until after the primary. After the primary, then they choose a running mate. So everybody's running by themselves. Well, I think it'd be better if he's like, okay, I don't have to, but I choose to. Then everybody who would vote for Mr. Harmon, he gets those votes, and everybody who would support Mr. Watts. And we can kind of pool ours together. So I believe that we have a lot of good choices for governor this year in the Republican primary. A lot of good people will be on that list. But I think he is the best of the good people on that list. So you pray about that. Send an email to Mr. Harmon. To be a voice for the people. So,
Did you say what your Patriot, anything about your Patriot?
I do a YouTube channel called Patriot Point. What I try to do on Patriot Point is talk about the news that the mainstream is not talking about, and to give you the analytics as well. This is the analysis of this. They're not talking about it. This is why. Like this year in the Kentucky State Legislature, they passed approximately 200 new laws. Now, except for you, and you. Can anybody stand up and tell me 5? They passed 200 new laws. Can you tell me 5? 4? 3?
One of them was,
And that's, I'll stop you right there. People can usually name one. They passed 200 new laws. They proposed approximately 900 new laws this year. Hosea chapter 4 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. We don't even know what they're doing up there. And if it wasn't groups such as Constitutional Kentucky and Moms for Liberty and American Family Association, we wouldn't know that they were trying to propose a 34% gas tax that can automatically increase every year without a vote from now to eternity, as much as 10% every year. And all kinds of other things. So I encourage you to watch Patriot Point on YouTube.
It's also entertaining.
I try to make it entertaining.
Yes, it is.
So there's that old saying, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Oh, yeah.
So we try to do that. And I don't know if you can get TV stations out of Louisville, but there's a TV station in Louisville that's been watching Patriot Point the last year and a half, and has offered me a television program, and we finished the contract up yesterday afternoon. Very excited about that. So starting on the second Wednesday in August, which I think is the 11th, Patriot Point Television will be on WBNA, Channel 21, Wednesdays at 11 p.m. So you can watch the big national news, Hannity and different people like that, and then turn over and watch some local stuff. I don't know if you can get that down here. I can't get it in my, I live in Lexington. Any other questions? Comments? Smart aleck remarks?
I know some of your YouTube, I know some of your videos on YouTube they've blocked. So
Yes.
YouTube is not the place to get all of your videos.
Right, because again, if you mention anything that is not, it raises red flags for their socialist agenda,
Yes.
then they block it. So I have another site called Patriot Point, which is on BitChute,
Yes.
which is another video service. Then you can just BitChute, 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 like a bullshit, okay? And that's where I put the ones that the fascists on YouTube won't allow me to do. So you can find that there.